Okay, hi, it's Robin. We're into Leo, sunshine, and half the class is Leo, so happy birthday, everybody. And may your sun shine. Okay, it's appropriate class for the going into Leo, because today I want to get into the meaning of the sun and how the sun works and what we can learn from it through progressions. And it's a fairly simple, straightforward 90 degrees. We're watching the sun go through 90 degrees, 100 degrees of our chart, from the place it starts to where how long we live. But it started from conception, and then we have the 9 months in the womb, or less sometimes, and then we get born and we have 3 more months, 90 more days, before we complete a whole cycle of the zodiac as a living entity. We are living inside the womb, but we're not alive in an individual birth. We're not separate. We're not our own person. So we're not, in today's world, by nature, we're not alive, but we're in the living process. So that even being born is not astrology, we take the first breath you take when you're separated from your own is that birth. I'm me. Like, whoa, what have I done? Like, we get separated, and that individual, that represents a mark of our individuality, of being on our own life. But really, every factor that your mom got exposed to, every thought, every feeling, every mood, every experience during pregnancy is part of your psyche. It's gone into making you. Every anger, every fight, every happiness, every smile, every pleasant thing, every drink, every smoke, every whatever it would be, all these things add up and become part of your basic nature, your health, your mentally, your physically. So all of your becoming here into life starts from just from the time of conception. And every thought that the mother has, every vibration, every frequency, every experience that happens in the womb becomes part of your psyche and your I guess you call it your inner consciousness, or your psyche. But even that didn't start at conception. So your birth didn't even start at conception. It started a couple of years before conception, because the health of each parent, the quality of blood, what they've eaten, what they didn't, how healthy, how active they were, how spiritual and not spiritual, how they were living for up to 2 years before you're born, is part of the quality of blood and the DNA of the conception of the seed at conception, which has to go to when you take your independent birth. So that first breath, which we do our chart for, represents how we're separated from things, how we're distinct from things. But it really is that how we're separated from our mom, when we're breathing from outside rather than through the blood, through the umbilical cord within our mom. So the moment of birth is the moment for the chart is not when the umbilical cord gets cut. It's when that first breath is taken. Okay, and it has to be taken within 4 minutes, naturally, artificially. However, that air has to get in from the outside in that first 3 or 4 minutes of life, where we don't make it. It's a natural transition. So, okay. Then we're born, we pick up our chart, we have our basic matrix, our basic pattern type within the matrix. That's who we are. We have our basic self, our basic, our sun, our purpose, our moon, our past, our memory, the way we think, the way we do things, our attitude to things, the type of way. It's just the circumstances. We're trying to be more independent, more free. We're trying to belong more. We're trying to be more subjective or more objective. All of these main factors of how we process information is already set. How we process life, how we're going to experience life. That's our matrix set from the time we're born. That's the blueprint. That's the pattern of the matrix. From then on, we go out and experience it. We gather experience every day, every minute. We're gaining experience. We're gaining experience. We're adding experiences, and we're building up the fortress or the castle or the house or the cabin or the hut or the shack of our heart, of our chart. We're manifesting it. And it can happen on so many levels, on so many frequencies. We have all these different levels of consciousness of each of the planets. They're all manifesting, they're all experiencing, and they're all gaining experiences, good, bad. They're all trying things. They're going through cycles and building things up, and that's life. That's the texture of life. And some things happen basically by the age you're born. You know, some things happen in the first month, 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, you know, like a year, 2 years. We have basic things that happen to everybody at more or less the same time, just being what a body goes through across a lifetime. And those would be the transits of each planet to itself. The transits, we watch the transit of Saturn to itself, but you could watch each planet to itself. And how it evolves, that's going to be basically, that cycle is going to be the cycles for everyone, but they'll fluctuate as things go retrograde or other things happen. So that's our world. We watch our transits. We see the transitory world build up. We get to the terrible twos, one Mars cycle. You know, we get a moon cycle. We live through 30 days, and we get the moon cycle. And we've gone. But by then our memory clicks in. By the time we get to 88 days, we got our Mercury cycle clicks in, completes, and we start being able to think outwardly, and we start connecting and watching things outside in the world. By the time we get to Venus, we have a 7, 8 or 9 month cycle that goes on of what we like, what we don't like, what we want, what we have, what turns us on. So what's mine when we're 8 months old, what we like, what don't give me the dessert, give me the desserts, don't give me that stewed stuff. You know, we start, taste is our strongest memory. But the development of taste and style, things we like not like, this is the Venus. So we have our basic habits, our memories, our moods, our sense of security. The first cycle is set in the first 30 days of your life. Whoa. From then on, you're repeating the pattern and evolving the pattern every month that goes by. So it becomes an instinct, but it's still our basic needs, our instincts, our security, and how we remember and what we choose to remember. And that's the moon. The Mercury at 3 months has gone through 3 moon cycles, and you, by then you begin to make sense. You begin to see the patterns in the cycles of the moon, in the cycles of your memory, the ups and downs. So as we begin to see these patterns, we start to think about them, we start to anticipate, and we start to take we start to anticipate them and try and plan for them, or try and figure out what to do with them. So we start developing our intellect, our cunning, our sense of timing from Mercury. This is just transitory things I'm talking about. Just where as Mercury clicks in the 3 month cycle, 6 months, we learn things in 3 month cycles, and this goes on and on and on, layer by layer by layer, cycle by cycle, across our lifetime. Okay, then we have the sun cycle. We have each year over this age. What happened when I was 21? It was a very good year. We have all the different years we go through, and the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. We still go through them, and we're so many years old. And in those so many years, we've lived so many moon cycles. We lived so many Mercury cycles. We lived so many Venus cycles. We're adding these textures. This music is building up. We're adding these textures to our blueprint, to our matrix, to our psyche, and we're adding experience in nature and in life outwardly. And it's accumulating. It's building up. It's building up. We're building up our life. This keeps going. Then by the time we get to 2 years old, by the time we understand and we're running around, we can get into things. We start being able to get into dangerous things. We start being pulled around. We start running into rules and authorities. We have to get through the terrible twos. And every 2 years, we go through a Mars cycle of pushing things, using energy on a different level. This really surges in the teenage years, early teenage to early 20 years, at really powerful times. By the time we're older, we don't have the same power. We have to learn how to use it differently. But there's the force of doing something, there's the force of holding back, There's a desire for experience, there's the gaining of experience, there's the rejections from experiences, the forces, the rejections, the failures, the successes. These are your Martian things. They go through 2-year cycles. We build these up in 2-year cycles. So we build up the moon cycles, we build up the Mercury cycles, we build up the Venus cycles. These are our eternal internal buildups of taste, values, things. Then we have to put it to the test in life, and everything seems to be holding us back. We got to get out of the house. We got to get to school. We're getting out to do things. We got to get out. We're going up to higher levels of school. We're going to play sports. We want to get out of the home. We want to get a job. We want to go do things. We want to get experienced. And every 2 years we go on, even around relationships. They're 2-year cycles. It takes a lot of work to get a relationship past the 2-year cycle. If it's just about sex and the energy it's a 2-year cycle, 1 year up, 1 year down, and then you have to start again. It's hard to get a relationship. To prove you can hold steady and use the energy and be consistent over more than 2 years, it takes a deeper commitment. It takes a 12-year or 30-year commitment. It takes an investment together, a Jupiter cycle, or it takes a baby or kid being born while there's a 30-year cycle. And commitments, and we all have to play these things out. So we're doing things, but as we do things, Jupiter, it's a 12-year cycle. It kicks in. We begin to assess why things happen or how things happen. Just as Mercury is figuring out our memories and trying to make sense of the memories, Jupiter is assimilating our experiences, trying to digest what happened. If that happened, then this can be, or this is right, or that's wrong. It's our sense of morality, of principles. It's our assimilation of experience and the wisdom that comes from having experience. Okay, so if you're grown up in a place where it's totally repressed and you're not allowed to have sex or get out of the house, you're supposed to be a slave till you're 40. That's one type of experience. You're going to have a certain type of assimilation. So we have assimilation when we've got away and done things. We can have a very aggressive assimilation, or we can have a victim assimilation. It depends how our Mars worked. And then the Jupiter comes and understands it's harder to, Jupiter's always trying to contemplate or fathom or digest what's happened. So anytime you have a violent experience or a really harsh, a rape, an accident, a fight, a violent experience, it's going to take 12 years to assimilate what happens. It's going to take 6 years reacting to it, and 6 years reacting to it in context to people around you and assimilating it before Jupiter gets back to the same place and you get beyond it. So we're all, generally, we think we're 12 years younger than we are. You know, like we're going along and we understand where we were 12 years ago, because that's where Jupiter was 12 years ago. We've assimilated that, not before that, to some degree, some better, some worse. But what's happened, what's been recently happened, we're still working on. So that's an abstraction or a principle. It's still being assimilated, digested. And there's good and bad. What's right? What's wrong? There's a Jupiter. It's figuring out, whoa, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, that was silly. Oh, I shouldn't have put my hand on the stove. Oh, I shouldn't have, like, or just, if 3 people love you, how do you let anybody down? Oh, my. Well, you find out, you learn the lessons from these things. From Jupiter. As it affects you, as it affects your health, as it affects your reactions to other people and their reactions to you, as you're becoming greater or more whole, you're also affecting the greatness or wholeness of other people and the interactions within that. And that's some of the Jupiter's figuring out, effect on me and effects on others. And that's why it's the planet of wisdom, but more often than not, it's slightly tarnished wisdom. And it needs to, how do you learn a lesson to make things better? You have to see that if this is wrong, oh, somebody's done it better. Oh my God, we learn, we observe, we grow. That's the Jupiter principle. So when we get to Saturn, the Saturn's only, it's your backbone. It's where your bones grow up on the Saturn cycle, in the 30-year cycle. Your ego grows up on the 30-year cycle. What I've accomplished, what I've done, this is the structure, this is where it is, this is, I have time for this, I only have time for this. And we run into authority, restrictions, limits of our body size and shape, limits of our social position or not position, limits of our parents or not parents, of teachers. We run across all kinds of